My long-range Tesla Model Y came with carpet floor mats, and I've always liked the idea of switching those out in the winter for some really tough rubber mats that you can just take out quickly and pressure hose clean. I don't really like the way that carpet mats tend to stay a little bit damp over the winter, and they just get really quite ingrained with dirt over the winter months. And in the Model Y, I use my frunk for carrying welly boots, so that obviously does get pretty dirty, and you end up with it building up at the bottom of the frunk there. And the same thing kind of happens in the boot. If we go to the beach, you end up with sand getting more and more ingrained into the carpets in the boot area as well, especially that lower boot area that kind of accumulates dirt. You can't easily just brush stuff out because it's right at the bottom there. So I was sent this 6-piece rubber 3D mat set for the Model Y to test out and do a video on. I do get to keep them, but no money is changing hands, and I can say what I like about them. If you're going to go for some of these mats, the link is in the description below. If you use those links, it'll help the channel out too. So the first impressions of these when you get them out of the box is they're really tough. They do hold their shape. They're quite rigid. They are obviously a sort of 3D shaped mat that's designed to kind of fit in the shape of the car. And they do feel really tough. They've got this kind of nice little texture to them, which is actually, interestingly, it's very grippy when dry, but when it does get wet, it is much less grippy. And that's actually in contrast to a carpet mat, which obviously kind of is grippy whether it's wet or dry. So that's an interesting difference straight away. So this 6-piece kit here gives us a liner for the frunk and a liner for this kind of sub boot and the main boot, as well as the single piece for the rear seats, and obviously the driver's side and passenger side as well. Obviously, the most important thing with mats like this is going to be how well they fit. Interestingly, there is a little bit of variance, I think, in how well these fit according to which one you're looking at. So the one in the frunk seems to fit perfectly well. There's no play. It's a lovely fit, works really nicely. And the one in the rear seat seems to fit really nicely as well. But unfortunately, the one in the sub boot does have a little bit of side-to-side play. It doesn't quite seem wide enough, and you can sort of shuffle it from side to side. So dirt might well just drop down that edge and still build up in the bottom there, which is obviously not really what you want. But in principle, both of these kind of liners for the frunk and the sub boot do have this raised up lip around the edge, which will catch all of the dirt. Now, the one for the main boot or trunk area is really interesting. I was kind of concerned how it would interact with your ability to get into the sub boot and that secondary storage area at the back of the boot as well. So this mat can fold front to back or side to side, and the front to back fold does line up with that main hatch for the back, so you can still lift that up quite easily. And what's brilliant about it is you can actually still fold it back on itself and get it completely out the way, and then take the lid for the sub boot area and chuck that on the top or underneath it. So you can actually use that semi-permanent setup where you've still got access to the sub boot quite nicely with this mat, which I'm really pleased about. And like the other mats in this kit, it seems super tough. I'd have no concerns about dog claws on this mat. Obviously, when you're using a rubber mat, the goal is to have something that's easy to wash and keep clean, especially over winter when you're coming in and out with muddy boots all the time. And obviously for the frunk and the boot where these things are getting really dirty, you want to be able to clean these things quickly. So I tested this out, and it's actually very easy just to take the mats out and then pressure hose them off. And then you can just bang it. And because of the rigidity of the mat, and it is quite rigid, it just sort of shakes itself dry. And this is interesting because when I've used normal rubber floppy mats, they're actually really hard to dry. They're so heavy, you can't really hit them hard because it hurts. Because they're so floppy, they do kind of stay wet, and you have to dry them in the sun for ages. But with these kind of lighter weight rigid mats, you can just tap them, and like a drum, the whole surface just kind of just shakes all that moisture off. I couldn't believe how quickly it was to just dry these with a little bang. So that's a really welcome characteristic of these. They are obviously ever so slightly damp when you put them back in the car, but I have no problem with the air conditioning system in the car just drying that out. Now, interestingly, when I did just pressure hose these with just the pressure hose with no other products on there, once it was completely dry, I did still see a little bit of the residue of the dirt on the mat. It's just kind of, you can see it. So I think to really get them super clean, you'd want to use a bit of detergent or snow foam on the mat before you pressure hose it off. So if you use a snow foam rinse routine like I do, and if you look at my main channel, I've done quite a few car wash videos looking at the best kind of routines I've discovered for washing a car. So you could take the mats out first of all, lay them next to the car, snow foam the mats, and then when you pressure rinse the car, just pressure rinse the mats off as well. I think that would get you a really super clean mat ready to just bang dry and put straight back in again. Overall, a pretty solid product. I'm happy to recommend it. I like the fact that it's kind of lightweight and rigid, which allows for this amazing ability to tap it dry. I think the fit of some of these pieces could be slightly better. The front's perfect, but the rear sub boot has got that side-to-side play, and the front passenger mat doesn't lie flat at the top for me either. And there's a kind of weird gap that doesn't actually fit the profile of the footwell tightly. It kind of cuts the corner off. It's a little bit annoying. I'd like to see that take the shape of the footwell properly right to the corners. So maybe there'll be a slight revision to the shape as time goes on. They are super easy to keep clean, and they do let you save your carpet mats for the summer. If you enjoyed this video, you should definitely check out this video next, where I look at why the Model Y, even in 2023, has no competition at all. Some really interesting discussion going on in the comments on that video as well, and I'll see you there.